my friend Mark, who is a known YouTuber from the Philippines, talking about expat life in the Philippines mainly, and is an experiment. This is the first, thank you, of many live streams to come, and this one needs to go in there.
Yeah, so anybody out there that's watching, let us know how the picture is, how the sound is, and if you got any questions for me and Klaus, be happy to answer them for you. We're here at Klaus's home up here on his veranda. And so anything you'd like to know, let us know. Don't Everybody watching right now, it's just us.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask you some questions, huh? Because this will all be recorded. This
okay.
This will still be on your channel, later on. So, how long have you been in the Philippines, Klaus?
7 years. 7 years.
Wow.
Most of it in Negros, sometime in Cebu, and sometime in Palawan, which are also beautiful places.
I've always wanted to go there, Palawan.
Yeah. Have you heard of this? There's this famous, Hong, there's this bay in Vietnam with these famous rock spires.
I have seen that, I've seen that.
And actually, it's the name evades me right now. It looks very similar in Palawan.
Oh.
Yeah, in the north. Beautiful area.
It's difficult to get there from here, isn't it, though?
It is. So in order to... there's some flights to El Nido, which is in the north, which are expensive. But so you probably have to fly to Puerto Princesa, and then it's a couple hours. And by this, I mean like 6 or 7 hours to... El Nido, so you want to explore the north typically, and there's a lot of beautiful, actually some of the best diving I've seen in the Philippines is in the Culion group, which is about an hour, I guess now half a day north of El Nido by boat.
Wow. Yeah, I've been wanting to go there. So you came here 7 years ago. I've never been to Austria. I've seen documentaries on it. It seems like such a beautiful country with a lot of, great infrastructure and historical things.
Yeah.
What is it that makes the Philippines more attractive to you? Because you're married now, you got a child and everything to come and live in the Philippines as opposed to a country that's successful and has so much to offer like Austria.
Well, there's always a trade-off. We used to have coral reefs in Austria. But this was in the late Cretaceous, so that's about 70 million years ago.
Wow.
And so now the coral reefs are fossilized. Still really interesting, the part of the Alps, but if you actually want to see live corals and reef fish, I have to go to the tropics on planet Earth. So that brought me here initially, and it's it's fun. It's fun.
So it's basically about your background with marine biology that has you in the Philippines.
Exactly. It's just amazing biodiversity. The reef fish, mollusks, corals, just the whole ecosystem. So we are here. Let me show our viewers. You can barely see the ocean in a distance, and so we're just a short walk away from the ocean, and it's amazing, right? Like the amount of different fish, the amount how the way how they interact, the amounts of mollusks, all these things are just mind-boggling. And so, this is what brought me here. I mean, you're like a short walk away from a BBC Blue Ocean documentary setting.
Wow. So as far as how all the other things that Austria has to offer, like, the great universities, the medical care, the infrastructure, the history, and then of course, your whole family and the connections to your culture, and you don't miss any of that?
Well, I do, right? But our family members, like my parents, love to visit here. It's, they're retired and well off, and it's nice for them. I do usually go back to visit. It's been a while now because of the pandemic. Regarding the infrastructure and the culture, I miss that. it's nice when things, work smoothly, but yeah, I mean, there's always a trade-off. So regarding the universities, there are good universities here for sure. So I'm actually really excited about the place where I'm now, Silliman University. Great colleagues, great students. So the part is awesome here, and but then it's really things like you mentioned the medical care. I'm pretty healthy now still. I guess once you hit your 70s, maybe 80s, this becomes more important. But there's still a while till then. So if you're young and healthy, the Philippines are really cool.
Are you taking your wife to Austria yet?
Yeah. It's actually, she's been there twice.
What is her impression? What you think about it? It must have been, for a Filipina to go to Austria, it must have been quite a culture shock. Huh?
She loves it. So she's the type of personality who would, by the way, let's still hear, sweetie, we're streaming. She's a curious person. Very good. We were talking about you.
I don't know why we don't see where the comments are either. Usually there's a line there on the side for comments.
So let's check that out. Okay. No, that's not it. I'm sure I can figure that out. Maybe this. Top chat.
Yeah, live chat is that.
Okay, so that's
usually on this side is like comments.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because there's nobody watching.
Yeah. Maybe it will show up.
One person's out there.
Yeah. Live chat. Okay. Nothing there yet. So yeah.
Thanks for watching. The one person that's out there, we appreciate it.
We love you.
Yeah. If you have any questions, put a comment out there, and we'll see if it'll show up or not. It's the first time for Klaus doing a live stream.
Yeah. So my sweetheart, she loved Austria. I mean, she's a curious person, and that there's so much new stuff, and starting from the food, the architecture, the way to get around. I mean, quite honestly, the public transport in Vienna is excellent, and that's surprising, of course, for somebody who is coming from the Philippines. Where things just take a longer time. So she really enjoyed it. The times when we went, it was I think in in May and in October. So we've never gone in during the winter, where it's both interesting, right? If you've grown up in the tropics, that everything is snowed in, but also it's cumbersome, right? You're like, so you need to wear all these clothes, and it gets dark at 4:30, and it's just the sun cheers you up, and that's just missing for 3 months a year in Austria. So she hasn't seen that yet, but and plus when you're visiting in a place as opposed to living and working there, everything is always more rosy, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since she's a Filipina and Austria is a member of the EU. Did you have to get that special visa, that Schengen or something like that visa?
Schengen, yeah. So
Tell me about that process.
Well, so this is, never mind. This is about, I'd say probably 20 years old. So there's the Schengen Treaty, named after the town, I think in the Netherlands, where this was signed. And it's actually a good thing that there is one visa for all of Europe, the European Union, including Switzerland, I believe. And so you just apply via the embassy of the country where you spend the majority of the time. But then she has an aunt living in Germany as well. And she could easily visit that aunt without having to apply for another visa. Anyway, there are no more... I'm sure you know about this, right? All the domestic borders between the European Union countries are essentially non-existent.
Right.
I mean, there's still a post which says, Germany starts, but nobody's going to go through your luggage.
Right.
And I think you can have different opinions about the European Union, and it has weak points, right, as an institution. But this abolishing of boundaries of borders, I think, is a great thing. So she could easily visit her aunt, and then we also went to my parents live in Vienna, and that's a 45-minute drive to Hungary to shop on, and which is a very interesting country too. Good food, and then so we also went to Hungary, and no questions asked. So. And we didn't. You typically don't go via the embassy yourself, but especially in the Philippines, there are agencies for that, right?
So that's what you did for German or for Austria?
Yeah, exactly. So we submitted. You essentially need to have proof that you have a reason to come back here. She owns a little bit of land, so that would be it. And then you have to have an official invitation, and then there's a brief interview. But it seems reasonable, actually.
So what's the cost for it?
I don't quite remember, but it was reasonable. I think it was probably in the order of 10,000 pesos.
Okay, not bad.
All in all, yeah. And then the the agency is on your side, like you're paying the agency, so they're not trying to sabotage you. And that's, but then we submitted a few I guess it's reasonable that they don't want human trafficking.
Yeah.
And so we submitted some pictures, where my parents and the two of us are having dinner together, so that they would see that we're actually a couple, and that I'm not bringing her into.
How long is it good for, the visa?
I think you can apply for different ones, but I think it's 3 months what she got this time.
Okay, so you can go 3 months and travel, but then if you want to go again next year or the end of the year, you got to do it all over again.
You would have to do it all over again. But and I mean, so basically, what does it cover, right? Like all of continental Europe. Obviously it doesn't cover the UK anymore. I think most member countries of the European Union, also Schengen, are members. And then I'm not 100% sure, but I think Switzerland is included too. So just for a visit, we could go to Switzerland as well. So it really makes things quite easily, right? Because, obviously, you've been many times, right? So in Europe, countries are pretty small sometimes. Yeah. So where my grandmother used to live in the south of Austria. It's just less than 2 hours of driving to either go to Italy or to Slovenia. So it's quite convenient that there's no need to apply for a visa for Slovenia, right? To go there for an afternoon's visit and visit some lake and have a coffee. So. This made really traveling Europe quite convenient if you're visiting.
Now, what about your son? How old was he when you went there?
He. So my sweetheart was pregnant the last time when we got there.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't.
So he was -5 months.
Okay.
So he got the Austrian citizenship now, and we have a passport for him. And that it should be easy for him to get there.
Has that changed for his mother, since his mother is a Filipina, but he's an Austrian? Does that get her? Does she still have to get that Chilean visa?
Yeah, she still has to get that, but it wasn't a problem before. I guess it would make it easier should we ever decide to move there on a permanent basis for her to do that.
You ever thought about that?
I have. Right now, I have a bunch of really nice things going in the Philippines, like my university teaching, and as I mentioned, it's just a fantastic privilege being able to scuba dive on a couple times a week, really, at this point, and then in a site where people fly in from Germany to just be there for 10 days and do a couple of dives. And so I have a couple, and then I do a lot of popular science writing, shameless self-pitch. I just have a book out which is called The Lives of Gobies. And this book obviously is about gobies, which are small marine fishes. And then the book has a lot of photographs, which I also all took here. So my popular science writing is all based around the Philippines. That I would write about, the ecology of coral reefs or environmental problems in the ocean, and that is really tied in very much with my underwater photography and videography. So there'd be pluses to be in Austria, but right now, like, a lot of cool things are happening here, essentially, for me.
Well, what about the education for your son when he's old enough to go to school? Because, like, right now, as far as I know, the schools are still closed because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I've seen, like, hit or miss as far as the quality of education here. I mean, you've obviously got like a PhD, right? So you're highly educated.
Yeah.
And I assume you want your son to be highly educated.
Absolutely.
And so have you thought about, like, his education, what your plans are for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Silliman University, where I teach myself, they have a program from kindergarten to high school. So that would really be the choice. I mean, I think the Philippines are doing well in education in many regards, given that they're a poor country. But still, the public schools here in the countryside, essentially, I think might not be the best preparation for life as an intellectual, for going to university. So yeah, I think Silliman, that would be it. So this is you probably know about this. So this was the first university founded by the Americans after they won the Philippines from the Spanish, right?
I didn't know that.
So the Spanish didn't put up a very good fight, right, in 1899. They're like, oh, what do we do now? There's like a real war.
Yeah, but wasn't it kind of a sham war anywhere? They said, like, we can't just let you take it. We have to have a war, and then we know you'll win. I thought there was some kind of under-the-table agreement on that war.
Well, I mean,
that's what I heard.
I think you could put it in that way, but then I think they tried, but it was so obvious that the Spanish Empire was on its last leg in the late 19th century.
But then the Americans tried to keep the Philippines. They didn't want to, like, give it back. They wanted to make it a territory, right? And then we had another war.
So the Philippine revolutionaries, Rizal, right? And they thought, oh, cool, now we're going to be independent. But that didn't happen. But, and so I think roughly for the first 5 to 10 years, there was a pretty vicious war. And actually Mark Twain, whom you know for sure, he was a major activist opposed to this war, right? And then, but, this was ugly, but then the Americans did, come up and did establish a lot of infrastructure. So Silliman University, I believe, was founded in 1905. And it was also the first Protestant university in the Philippines. And there's still, obviously, I mean, it doesn't matter what your religion is when you teach there, but there's still like an active church community that's associated with the university. And then, it's a small university with a long, nice tradition. Actually, a really beautiful campus. And they so they have this whole education program from primary school up. And I think this would probably for my son be the way to go. Yeah, so if you're ever in Dumaguete, do visit the campus. Right now, we're still a bit closed. That means we're closed because of COVID for public visitors. But there's a very interesting anthropology museum. Have you been to that?
No, I haven't.
Obviously, you'll be here for a while. Maybe in the next 6 or 7 years, right? The COVID emergency is declared over. To be optimistic. And then this museum will reopen. The amazing anthropological artifacts, like pre-contact, earthware, like porcelain, and a lot of very interesting stuff from the south, from Mindanao. So these sultans there, they would have these daggers as a status symbol. So what if you're a sultan and I'm a sultan, and my dagger is this size? What are you going to do?
Make mine bigger.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna make mine bigger. And what are you gonna do? So there are these daggers in this museum, which are like 2 meters long.
Yes.
And it's fascinating. There's unique stuff there. And there's what I can also recommend once we reopen. There's a very interesting museum in the Marine Lab. Have you seen this?
No, I've never been there.
I can actually take you to that. And this museum is a museum with a lot of whale bone. Well,
There's a whale shark, but I mean,
yeah, they're actually, the thing with the, and there was actually artisanal whaling till the 1960s. Yeah. Where, now what the Japanese are doing is cowardly, right? If you have like a modern boat under like a rocket to shoot at a whale, right? I mean, this is just wrong, right? But what these people did, they essentially had like a little rowboat, and then they would essentially find a baleen whale, and like a dude would jump on the whale and stab it.
Geez.
I mean, it's still not a good thing ecologically, but it's definitely not cowardly, right?
Yeah.
And then, so...
Do they have something to eat? The whales even have food here? Because I thought when I was in Alaska, I saw whales there, and a biologist told me that the whales came from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And when they were in Hawaii, when they were traveling to Alaska, they didn't eat at all the whole time they were there. And they lost tons of weight between the trips. So are they eating here, or are they just transiting through?
That's a very good question, and I'm not sure whether this was the tropical endpoint of a migration or if they were migratory. So the whales which were here we should go to that museum for sure. It's called a Omura's whale, I believe, and this is essentially it's a pygmy form of a baleen whale, so related to like a humpback whale, but much smaller. Probably on the order of 6 or 7 meters.
Wow, that's small.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're very rare too. And then, so these locals would just hunt them with a handheld spear. And this only ended within our lifetimes, really.
Wow.
Crazy, huh? And then so these, you can both see the native harpoons and whaling artifacts, as well as a lot of bones, which I believe the Silliman people picked up in Bohol. So they, and then there are these Omura's whales, and there are a lot of jaw bones from them, and it's fascinating. And there's one reconstruction, and there's a skull of a sperm whale. Which has, so this is the animal with the biggest brain, right, on the planet. So a human brain is roughly 1.5 liters in volume, and I believe the sperm whale brain is about 7 liters. So roughly, what's that, 5 times a human brain, right?
Yeah, but in relation to its body, like the human brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it bigger than ours compared to?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, so very good point, yeah. But it's still the biggest brain. So if any sperm whales are watching, we love you. Yeah, so that's fascinating to see. And they have a melon head whale skeleton, which is essentially a large dolphin. And it's really worth checking out. It's a small museum, but they're quite unusual artifacts.
Well, these people, like going back before they were discovered by the Spanish, whoever came here, you wonder why, do they all speak the same language? Or was there, Tagalog, Visay, and all these different languages back then? Or?
In the Philippines, right?
Yeah, in the Philippines, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's this clever saying by these Russian linguists, whose name I forgot, that a language is a dialect with an army and a navy, right? That's why Austrian is not a language, because we don't have a navy. So it's of course like it's a joking comment, but it's true, right? So where do you draw the line between is Swiss German or like British English, American English?
Right.
Are these dialects or languages? And at one point, I mean, if you go to the rural parts of the UK, it's difficult to understand.
I've been there.
Yeah. So where do you draw the line? So sometimes it's difficult to count. What do you count as a language? But yeah.
Well, like someone told me one time, like if you had a time machine and went back to say 1600 in England and dropped an American off, or even someone that was born in England, they wouldn't understand what people are saying. They have a hard time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So particularly in the countryside, I think it'd be very hard. So in the Philippines, you have a huge number of dialects / languages, and I think you essentially have two groups, right? You have what? How is your Visaya?
Terrible.
Yeah, mine could be better. But I'm still okay. I think I'm okay. And the Visayan is what's called the Austronesian language, right? So Austro meaning South, and Nesian islander. So this is related to these Pacific Island languages, Micronesian, Polynesian. And all, Tagalog, Visaya, Varai, these are all Austronesian languages. And, like a family of languages, like the Romanic languages in Europe, right? French, Italian, Spanish. And there's a second group of languages here, which are these tribal languages. So, the main group of modern Filipinos settled, right? And they're now, like the Ita tribes, and the, people like the Bajau. So these languages, as far as I know, are completely slave.
Yeah.
So these are
the 7,000 islands. There must be a lot of variations.
Exactly. And these islands are these ancient.
Well, going back to the Spanish and the Americans, if going back to the Spanish and Americans, if things had worked out differently historically, the Philippines could have ended up like Puerto Rico or Hawaii.
Yeah,
right?
it's an interesting
close
thought.
to
Interesting
that,
thought. Yeah.
You think about what would the country be like if it was they'd gone the direction of, say, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thought, and
Sorry.
No worries about that. What would the political consequences are? It would have changed the U.S. very much.
Yeah.
Would it have changed the U.S. in a significant way? It'd be very interesting to ask these counterfactual historical questions. Or Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Hawaii was an independent kingdom till, when was this, like 1860 maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
And then now it's just a regular American state, really. Yeah. Wow. I don't
they suffered, think about it, the Philippines suffered like during World War II with the Japanese coming here and everything, and, the cities were bombed and everything, so they almost paid the price of being like, involved with America, but they didn't get the benefits of it,
Yeah, exactly. But that's a way of looking at it. Yeah, of course, terrible casualties in World War II, and, very determined resistance. I left a lot of my books in Australia, but I will pull up the link and I will send it to you. I read this fascinating autobiography of an American guy who was, I think he was in the US Navy, and then he was left behind when the Japanese invaded. And then he joined the guerrilla groups in the mountains. And he fought with the locals. And then it's, this was a really interesting book to read.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And then, do you know about these Japanese holdouts?
Yeah, I've heard about them, yeah.
Yeah. So they were the opposite case.
Wasn't there one guy, so I'm not sure it was in the Philippines or not, but he was like in the jungle, that was the 1970s or something?
I think that was in Guam.
Yeah.
And he hadn't realized that World War II is over. That's crazy.
Wow.
And I think he looked at the sky, right? And then he saw like essentially tourist planes, jet planes coming to Guam, and in the 1970s. And then he thought, wow, the Americans are really, their military really has some fancy planes now. And these were really planes bringing, Japanese tourists really to Guam. Yeah, tragic in a way for the guy. Like a life lost.
Imagine living in the jungle for 40 years. Jesus.
Not realizing that the war is over.
Yeah.
Sweet. So should we call it a day?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for introducing me to live stream.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. And contact, and he'll be putting your links to your website, your email on there too.
For sure.
So you can contact Klaus, and you all know my channel, Every Man Has a Story.
Yeah,
so
very worth watching.
Love to hear from you.
Yeah. Sweet. And
I know how to end it.
What do I do now?
I think it's this one down here.
Bye. Oh, we have comments.
Yeah.
How do you answer the comment?
Well, usually they show up. I mean, I'm thinking that maybe we were using the YouTube, not the StreamYard. It doesn't look like StreamYard.
Well done. Okay, maybe just this. Stop stream. Yeah.